It's been 4.5 months since the October 7 terror attacks, when 240 Israelis were captured by Hamas. Some hostages have lived to tell the tale of the horror that they faced, but there are still around 100 innocent Israelis in Gaza. The families of those who remain captive are waiting anxiously for any sign of life. Among them is one mother, Rachel Goldberg. Her 23-year-old son, Hirsch, had his arm blown off when he was loaded into a Hamas pickup truck and taken to Gaza. Rachel joins me live now. Thank you so much for your time, and we're all so sorry for what you're still going through 4.5 months after. Where was Hirsch? What happened to him on October 7?
So first of all, thank you for having me. So Hirsch and one of his best friends from childhood were attending the Nova Music Festival, which was advertised as a festival for love, peace, and unity. And on Saturday morning, October 7th, when the massacre began at the Nova Festival, which ultimately killed 367 of those young people who were attending, Hirsch and his friend managed to escape to a roadside bomb shelter and were hiding with 27 other of the kids from that music festival in a very small 5-foot by 8-foot room, the bomb shelter. And Hamas came to the doorway, and first they threw in hand grenades, and then they sprayed the room with machine gun fire. And most of those kids were dead right away. There were 18 that were immediately dead. There were 4 people, young people, trapped underneath those bodies. And it was from those 4 people that we heard what happened to Hirsch, which is that he and 2 other young men were wounded, but slumped against the wall on the opposite side of the room. And when Hamas came in and entered the bomb shelter, they saw Hirsch and these 2 boys who were clearly alive. They couldn't pretend to be dead. They told them to stand up. When they stood up, that was when these witnesses explained to us that Hirsch's left arm from the elbow down had been blown off. Hamas ordered the 3 of them to come outside. They were put on a Hamas pickup truck and headed toward Gaza. Our last phone cell signal from Hirsch was on the morning of the 7th of October at 10:25 in the morning from inside of Gaza. And then subsequently, we received actual video footage from Anderson Cooper from CNN, who came across it while doing a documentary about the Nova Music Festival. And that has been widely seen. And that was when we got to actually see Hirsch being taken out at gunpoint, and he was put on this pickup truck. And when he turns to sit down, we see the left stump where his arm used to be. And I will mention that Hirsch, like me, is left-handed, so that was his dominant arm.
Yeah, it's just absolutely horrific. Now, since then, some hostages, as I mentioned, have been able to come home to Israel. There's been news that others have been killed. Their bodies still held in Gaza, though. Do you believe that your son is still alive?
We do. We actually, have been told by the intelligence community that the families of the tragically dead hostages have been contacted, and this is a situation where they feel that no news is decent news. I'm not going to say it's good news. I think it would be impossible to describe what we're going through as, good news. But what we understand from the hostages who were released at the end of November is that hostages who were taken very early on Saturday morning, October 7th, were taken for treatment. And Hirsch was taken in the 8s. He sent us 2 WhatsApp messages at 8:11 saying, "I love you and I'm sorry." And so we know that by 8:11, he knew he was in trouble. We knew he was in trouble. And so the working assumption is that he did receive some form of treatment early in the day on Saturday. And we are praying that he is alive and managing to survive in these very agonizing times. And what I say to myself is that hope is mandatory. So that's where we are.
Don't know how you manage to keep going every single day. As we know, the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, are now going into Rafah. 2 hostages have so far been rescued from Rafah. Are you hopeful or that he may be in Rafah, or do you have any intelligence at all about where he might be being held?
So we don't. I don't know if the intelligence community has that information, and maybe they aren't sharing it because there are so many families. You know, this is such a unique situation that you have hundreds of people because you have, families of over 100 people. So you have hundreds of people who are wanting to know information. And I'm not sure that the intelligence community, whoever those intelligence services are, there are many parties involved in this. I don't know that they can really share that with families, but of course I'm concerned for any people who are innocent, who are caught in the crosshairs of this, desperate situation, whether those be hostages or innocent Gazan civilians. I mean, there are just thousands and thousands and thousands of us suffering from this situation. And we did celebrate the release of Fernando and Luis a couple of weeks ago. That was like finally a whisper of, something to be happy about during these excruciating 132 days. But we are also, and the diplomatic community here, the intelligence community here has said that the real release of hostages is going to have to be, of course, it would be wonderful if it was the army was able to rescue them, but it is going to have to come from some sort of diplomatic negotiations.
Yeah, yeah.